We want to start with something right out of the headlines this week that has divided Democrats. President Biden announced he would wipe out $10,000 in student loan debt, depending on income level, or up to $20,000 for those who received a Pell Grant. Some say this measure did not go far enough to address students crippled with debt. Others say it was too much and a costly giveaway that will only make inflation worse. Mr. Siegel, where do you stand?
I absolutely support what the president did, and I would go even a bit further. I think that the people in question did the right thing, tried to get an education to improve themselves and to benefit our society as a whole. It helps us as a society. If we have people who are educated, it makes it better for us, easier for us to compete on the world stage. And I think that we're talking about people like nurses, we're talking about people like educators who've been saddled with debt in a way that hurts them, hurts their families, hurts their communities, and relieving them from that is going to have extraordinary dividends for them and for society more broadly over the course of years to come.
You said you'd go even further. What do you mean?
I would go, I've said that I would go at least to $50,000 for most people, in line with Elizabeth Warren's plan.
Do you have any concern at all that that would ratchet up an already crushing inflation that this country is facing?
Yeah, one, we're restarting payments in parallel with what's happening now or shortly thereafter. So people are going to have less debt, but they're also going to be paying payments again for the first time in several years. And this amounts to a fraction of a percentage of total spending in this country, and the people who would be relieved from this debt are some of the people most in need of increased spending power.
Mr. Magaziner, Mr. Siegel agrees with the plan but says it didn't go far enough. Is he wrong?
Well, first of all, Tim and Ted, thank you for having us tonight, and thank you to the viewers at home for watching and for caring about our democracy. This is a vitally important race. So many important issues on the ballot: lower costs, protecting Roe v. Wade, and the like. And yes, improving public education and making education at all levels more affordable. We need to make education more affordable in all forms. We need to lower the cost of college. We need to lower the cost of vocational and apprenticeships, vocational training and apprenticeships for those who aren't going to college. As far as student loan reform, I would have tackled it in a different way. The way I would have gone after it is lowering interest rates. In most cases, the federal government is the lender for student loans, and it is not right that the federal government is making a profit off of people's student loans. So the way I would have approached it is by tackling interest rates, which would have helped people save a lot of money on their monthly payments once they restart, and also would, I think, righted a wrong, which is that the federal government shouldn't be making a profit off of
So
these
you
loans.
disagree with the president that in relieving $10,000 in student loan debt?
Well, listen,
that was the wrong call.
I think that the president gets credit for keeping his commitments. He did commit that he would do this, and he delivered on it, as he's delivered on many other things that he promised to do. But the way I would have handled it would have been to focus on lowering rates, because I don't think that the federal government should be making a profit off of people's student loans.
Again, I want to be clear, though. You're saying lowering rates instead of, in lieu of the $10,000. Is that
again,
right?
When I get to Congress, that is what I am going to focus on: lowering rates and also making education, college education, and vocational training more affordable for everyone.
Ms. Fox?
The bottom line here is college is still too expensive. So I believe the move that the president made today is a good step in the right direction. I was particularly pleased to see the support of students who are receiving Pell Grants and what can happen there. But there is more we have to do to make education affordable throughout the lifespan. We need universal pre-K in this country. Like I just said, we need to continue to strengthen the Pell Grant, and we need to make sure that workforce development and job training programs are also more easily paid for. I'm probably one of the only people up here whose college choice was based on affordability. I went to Rhode Island College and put together scholarships, worked through school, and because of that, and because Rhode Island College was affordable, I graduated without debt, which is, I realize, the exception, not the rule. So we need to do more to make college more affordable for everyone.
Before I go to Ms. Morgenthau, do you think that, do you agree with Mr. Siegel then, considering debt and student debt, that the relief should have been greater? He suggested $50,000.
I think we're at a good starting point, but there's more that has to be done, yes.
Ms. Morgenthau?
I think education is the most important thing that we can do in our country for our children, for our young people. This is the thing that we need to make sure that we are the greatest country in the world. I am pleased that the president made this decision to do loan forgiveness. I think it is an important start. It will allow people to get their feet back on and get some easy give backs, and it will allow them to then put that money into the economy, get good jobs, which I think is enormously important in these hard times when things are really costing too much. So this was a necessary thing and a necessary investment in our education, in our young people, and ultimately will put money back into the economy, which I think is a good thing.
Same follow-up question to you that I had for Mr. Siegel. Jason Furman, who's an Obama-era economic advisor, called it a reckless idea by the president that will add a, quote, $500 billion of gasoline on the inflationary fire that is already burning. Are you worried about that?
No, I disagree with my friend Jason Furman on that. I think that this is really important. We need to provide this relief for people whose education costs are soaring. Everything is too expensive right now. Gas is too expensive. Groceries are too expensive. Housing is too expensive.
Won't make it
and
more
education
expensive?
is too expensive. And this will put money back into the economy, which I think is a good thing.